Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hi guys, this is Channelie Charbonneau, awarded author, children's author of the series My Mama Loves Me. But most importantly, I have on live today a very talented author by the name of Kimberly Packard. Hi Kimberly, how are you doing this evening?
Good. How are you doing, Channelie? I'm great. Thank you for having me.
No, our pleasure. Appreciate you taking the time. So here's what I've heard about you. You actually wanted to write a series that has a very interesting mission to it. Can you talk a little bit about why you wanted to become a writer? The new book coming out is called Vortex, so we can kind of give a little a teaser there. And just talk a little bit about why you do what you do.
Oh goodness, thank you. Well, it's kind of like breathing, writing for me. I can't not write. Can't not breathe. So kind of always wanted to be an author. Started when I was very young. I don't really actually remember having that conscious like, aha, I need to do this. So I think it's always been something inside of me. My parents would probably tell you I was fantastic at coming up with these wild stories. So, mostly to get myself out of trouble, but sometimes to entertain them and family. But I wrote to Beverly Cleary when I was 8 years old and asked her how to be an author. And she wrote me back and said, read everything you can and write every day. And carried that with me as I grew up through school. I was like the one kid in school that actually enjoyed doing book reports and reading the books that they assigned to us, and went on to become a journalism major. And, from there, just worked on kind of finding the stories that resonated with me. And right now in my author career, and I'm sure, we'll all change as we grow and new things interest us, but I'm really interested in stories about identity and who we are and how who we are today. Is that who we thought we were going to be 20 years ago? I was joking earlier that, it could be the pending midlife crisis talking, but I've been out of college 20 years and I kind of reflecting back like, oh, am I who I am today that I thought I would be? So my stories really reflect on mostly women, but women and their identity, sometimes trying to find their identity quite literally, which is some of Vortex, but then also figuratively, which is the Phoenix series.
So you have a main character in your Phoenix series, correct?
I do, yes.
Wonderful. So that is a woman. We'll leave it there so we don't give too much away yet. Yeah. But you are correct. I think when you hit about 20 years after college, it's very interesting how you can look back and there's things you can say, this was good because this led to here, and then this may have been not so good because it went the other direction. And you're right. How did we end up here? So
yeah.
So how did your series start? We understand that you've got a strong mission about strong women searching for their identity and what defines them and how that kind of morphs over time. How did the series start off? What's your first book in the birth of maybe what Vortex is now?
Absolutely. So the birth of Phoenix, like I said, I always knew I was going to write. And so I think I spent a good chunk of my 20s kind of figuring out what am I going to write? What are my first stories going to be? There's a lot of, petered out stories, probably sitting on a dead computer somewhere, that just never found their voice. But years ago, I worked at a Fortune 500 company. So I do public relations and communications for a day job. And I worked on the corporate side, doing contract announcements, so things that would influence stock pricing. And we had very strict rules about, okay, we're getting close to earnings, so we can't put certain things out. And the joke was more people in the legal department than the comms department had to sign off on my press releases. And I was getting up to an earnings period, so I was getting really antsy to try to get this press release out, and I was bugging my guys in legal. And one of them he quipped, he goes, honey, I'm trying to keep you out of jail. It's your name on that press release, not mine. If you get something wrong, you're the one in orange. And I kind of joked. I was like, okay, take all the time you need. That can wait. No big deal. But it did kind of get me thinking about the vulnerability I had in my role. Luckily I worked for a stand-up company that had the checks and balances. But before that, I'd worked for an agency, and there was a time or two when I knew my clients were lying to me.
Wow.
And it just really kind of that, every story has that what if, the what if is the story nugget. And so I started, asking myself driving home, what if there's this woman who is accidentally committing securities fraud, which would have been the crime I would have committed if I'd screwed something up. What if, and really that story just grew. And I think I told myself Amanda's story probably over 6 months of commuting, about a half-hour commute each way. And at that point I was like, okay, I have a story. And the funny thing about it is that what if, that little thing, that's just the nugget from there. I mean, it's like, dropping a pebble into a water. The concentric circles of that story just grew and grew and grew.
Wow. So working into Amanda, could you kind of give us an understanding of who Amanda is? Because she's not your arch nemesis. I've spoken to you before, and I think she's a really unique person, even though that experience catapulted the story. Sometimes I think the line between author and character kind of melds to a point where it's almost hard to tell the difference.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think in your case, you and Amanda are two totally different people. So could you describe who Amanda is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Amanda is, as I mentioned, she's a public relations professional, highly, highly ambitious, highly motivated. She is going to take over the world and leave no prisoners. And really, that's kind of where our similarity, well, I don't know. I think, I like to think I'm a pretty strong person as well. But I kind of joke. I'm like, I've never committed securities fraud. I'm not currently on the run from the law. That can change any day now. Who knows?
But next weekend.
Exactly. It takes me off tomorrow. But Amanda really is someone that, she made a lot of mistakes, and she made the mistake of trusting someone that her gut had told. If she had listened to her gut, she should have understood that, hey, there's some things going on that aren't right here. But she followed blindly, and she let money sway her. She was making a lot of good money, so that that can go a long way. And at the start of Phoenix, it all comes crashing down. And she's kind of like a Russian doll. You have to peel apart the outer layers, and that's what her story is about, is peeling off that hard edge of who she was with this ex-boyfriend, and then finding redemption and finding him. He takes off and leaves her to clean up the crime or take the blame. And so really her story is about finding Josh and finding herself, obviously. But the funny thing is, and I've had a lot of people like, oh, are you Amanda? No, not at all. But in the story, so I always write multiple POVs. Each chapter is a different POV, because I feel like I love being able to look in different people's psyche and tell their stories. But there's a character in Phoenix, Shiloh. I actually feel like I have a lot more in common with her.
Wow.
She's Amanda's romantic rival. Because there's a little bit of a love story. Once Amanda hits a small town, she falls in love with a cop. Shiloh is someone who lost her best friend at a young age and has, been dealing with this murder. And I lost a best friend, 10, 12 years ago. And there's a lot of pent up anger when someone takes someone from you, and especially someone so young. And so I find myself really, when I write Shiloh or wrote Shiloh, it was my way of dealing with my friend's death.
Wow. I'm sure that must have been difficult and so interesting that you as an author took almost like a side character and almost used that as a way to heal. So, kudos to you. It's, even though you may not be Amanda, it's great to see your parents kind of show up in a unique way. And that's thrilling. That's really interesting. So as she's gone from Phoenix now to Vortex, without giving too much away, because we know when is Vortex going to be released?
It will be out on January 31st, so a little over a week. And it's my first standalone. So it's completely new character. Right. Amanda's story is all wrapped up in the trilogy. So
okay, so who's the new character?
So this one's Elena. I kind of joke she's my spirit animal. She is really snarky, really funny, a bit of a tomboy. She makes extremely inappropriate jokes at the wrong time. So there's a little bit of me in there, a lot of it of me in there. But she is a storm chaser. She's in the final months of getting her doctorate, and she gets too close to a tornado and has a flashback of a repressed memory.
Wow.
And it really, calls into question everything that she thought she knew about her past. And so the story takes place during, storm season, and she's, chasing these tornadoes, not only to, finish her doctorate research paper, but also to try to find out what is she missing? What else is locked away in her mind?
Now, do you think she has an identity? Is she finding herself as well? Is she gaining strength from this?
Yeah. So, there's, part of the book, so she's adopted and she knows that. And so she grew up in a loving home. But, not many of us have a lot of memories from our childhood. And, you think about it, you're like, okay, am I remembering that? Or am I seeing the pictures mom showed me a million times in the scrapbook? And so, her identity crisis is, am I really who I am if I don't remember where I came from? What am I forgetting of my formative years in my first 3 or 4 years of life? And, really, we are who we are today. And it's the sum of everything that has led up until this moment. And, tomorrow I might be a slightly different person because there's new experiences that happen to me today. And so I think that's, the lesson that she's really striving to learn is, you're not you just because of the first few years of your life. And while it definitely does form the core of who you are, our identity is so much more complex than that.
Yeah. Well, let's do this, Kimberly. I think that's a good segue to kind of leave it there for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to take a quick break, let the listeners kind of digest what you just said, and we'll be right back. It's a great cliffhanger. Let's stop there.
Thank you.
What would you do if you found out everyone on the town council were thieves and murderers? That's what happened in Bandera, Texas in 1873. John Cruder was the marshal, yet he needed to operate outside the law in order to balance the scales of justice. He is the Midnight Marauder. You can find his books on Amazon.com and TopWesterns.com in paperback, digital, and audio. I'm Roy Clinton, and I hope you'll read The Midnight Marauder.
Love to read? Love to meet authors in person? Then check out bookfestival.network to find a book festival in your region of Texas. We are adding book festival events throughout the year, so sign up to get notices and even a coupon towards purchase of a Texas author's book. Sign up at bookfestival.network.
The Best of Eve, recipes from around the world. This was written by Eve, who was born in Holland and lived in South Africa and eventually came to Texas. This is no ordinary recipe book. This has herbs and spices and liqueurs and has a short story about Eve. The Best of Eve can be purchased on Amazon, and it is written by Helen Monday.
I am Grace Allison Blair, an award-winning author, motivational speaker, and modern mystic. I have combined spiritual and psychological principles in my nonfiction self-help books under Grace Allison and fiction books under Grace Blair. Go to modernmysticmedia.com to find Do You Have a Dream? 5 Keys to Realize Your Dream, and my novel, Einstein's Compass, a YA time traveler adventure.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
Well, welcome back, y'all. My name is Shanalee Charbonneau, and I am an award-winning children's author. Yet, most importantly, the radio host tonight, we are interviewing the very talented Kimberly Packard this evening. Welcome back, Kimberly.
Thank you, Shanalee.
Absolutely. So we have been speaking about your latest release, and I know we don't want to give too much away, but now I'm hooked. We're speaking of the main character who has had some memories that are coming to fruition. Maybe that's really questioning who she is.
Mhm.
How does that mystery continue in this book without giving the ending? How does that?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It's just like anything. You get a little bit closer, you get a little bit deeper down. She then also crosses paths with, and this is actually, talk about serendipity, was in a car ride with some friends and just threw the story idea out there, and like, there's actually drugs that rewrite memory. But she crosses paths with a psychiatrist who studies that. And so she then really is like, this is full on a mission. Because I write in multiple POVs, she pairs up with a gentleman named Tuck. He runs a storm chasing tour group, and that is a real thing. There are people out there that if you're not a real storm chaser, you just want to get, close enough to get an adrenaline rush, they'll take you there.
Oh my goodness.
And
waiver on that one.
I know, right?
Talk about orange suits right there. But
Yeah,
moving on.
exactly. So he's I kind of describe him as the P.T. Barnum of the tornado world.
Wow.
So part storm chaser, part carnival barker. They formed this strange alliance because she can't really stand him. He doesn't really like her because she's the establishment. But they find themselves kind of forming this bond, and then because a romance in the field always complicates everything. She also kind of starts this little romance with a TV meteorologist. And there's this really great scene where she punches him out on live TV. So that's why she's my spirit animal.
Awesome. Well, you have not done anything in getting back to Kimberly. You haven't done anything in meteorology.
No, not at all. I've read a ton of books, watched a lot of YouTube videos, and the few times we've had a tornado warning, I've run outside instead of in. I kind of joke that I think I've probably spent more time running from tornadoes than chasing after them. But
so you are an awarded author, correct?
I am. Yeah. I had the great honor of receiving the Fiction of the Year, Journal Fiction of the Year from the Texas Association of Authors in 2013 for Phoenix. So this was for my first book. So it was a great honor, and I'm still, extremely thankful for that.
That's wonderful. So going back to this experience that kind of fueled this whole new career for you, this award-winning career, you realized very early on that stepping outside of the box and maybe writing something that might be false or, causing trouble. How do you take that career, kind of the book, and what's going on today with respect to both parties?
Yeah.
You're a professional, right?
I am. Yes, I still work. I still have a quote unquote day job. And really I guess I could imagine just writing all the time as a full-time job. There are days I can imagine it much more than others, I'm sure. But there's something about being around other people and fresh ideas. And, kind of going back to the genesis of Phoenix, if I wasn't working at this company, it didn't have that conversation. I don't know, maybe I would have found Amanda on her own, but, there's something to be said about, always having your antenna up. And, I went to journalism school. So there's something about everybody has a story. And I love that. I had a wonderful professor and mentor who taught me that. And she taught me that if you ask enough questions and you listen, you'll find that story. And I think the same is true for writers. There's stories around us everywhere, and it's just a matter of being open to it and receptive. Have you read Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic?
No, I have not.
Oh, you'll love it. It's her memoir on fiction, on writing. And she has this great story in there about how, she really thinks that stories are, they're like children, they're just waiting to be born into the world. And she has this really cool story about her and Ann Patchett had very similar ideas. Anne acted on this story, wrote the book, Elizabeth didn't. And it just kind of shows you that, these stories are out there. They're looking for a home. They're looking for someone to bring them to life. And if we're open and receptive to them, they'll be good to us.
Yeah, it is amazing to me, because even as much as I've spent time with authors, you talk to them and they think, well, that's not quite a story. And the more even with them who are professional storytellers, even they will hold back some of their own story that is just amazing. So I appreciate you bringing that forward and sharing it, because I know that we see a lot, and information is getting inundated, and sometimes that's a very good spirit to have as we try to stay neutral and calm and listen to the story and listen to open-hearted as
well. And I try not to ever judge my characters. That's and I'll give you a great example. Josh, the ex-boyfriend in Phoenix, in the first book, he's kind of this shadowy figure. We just know about him, and Amanda's usually cursing his name a lot. But in Pardon Falls, in the second and third books, we actually get to meet Josh and we get inside his head. And I think I went in there thinking, oh, he's going to be such a jerk. And I ended up loving him, to the point that my editor was even like, oh, I hate it. I love him. And I think it was because I didn't go in there judging him. I didn't go in there thinking, oh, he's just a jerk. He's a playboy, blah, blah, blah. I went in there going, okay, tell me why. Tell me why you're this way. We weren't all born that way. Something happened. So I think that also goes a long way in telling these stories.
That's great advice. I think even in life, there's times where, and this is a very bad example, but just an example nonetheless, where you're driving down the road and, somebody pulls out in front of you, and mad. I really try as a person myself to say, let me make up this story. I guess this is part of the authorship, where this person has just found out that, they have to go pick up their child because the daycare closed early because something happened. And that's why they pulled out in front of me. Right.
Yeah.
So even though if that story's not true, just to kind of have the more positive side of trying to understand that somebody may be in a hurry and they do stuff, and I do stuff, we all do stuff. And that's a great attitude to continue that positive thing of just trying to understand why somebody has done something or been away. And you are correct. A lot of times when you do hear that, in my mind, 9 times out of 10, when you hear the story of somebody who's been through something, whether it's a relationship or a great story, you tend to like them because all of a sudden you can relate to whether it's a debatable right or wrong answer. It really doesn't matter. You still see how they got there.
Absolutely. And there was I think it was NPR that put out a study maybe a year or so ago that said readers are much more empathetic than non-readers because they're able to slip into someone else's story. I would say authors, we probably take it up even higher notch than the readers because, we only know the skin that we're in. We only know our worldview through our eyes. But when you're writing someone else's story, you do get to talk, take a step back and go, okay, why are they this way? And I think you're absolutely right. It just makes you see people for humans, not their actions, but for who they are.
That's great. I really want to leave that on a positive note. Kimberly, we are with very talented award-winning author Kimberly Packard of the new release Vortex. We will be back very soon.
What would you do if you had to put your life on hold to parent your parents? You have to laugh to keep from crying how to parent your parents is a must-read book full of antidotes and practical advice to help parenting your parents. Author Charlotte Canyon provides insights to help prepare anyone facing the challenges of caring for elderly parents. Check out our website at www.howtoparentyourparents.net.
Indie Lector is a store for serious readers and indie authors. Find great talent at indielector.store and save money on books with their book club. A portion of the proceeds helps get books into schools and libraries in need. Find a great book to read by an indie author at indielector.store.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lecter, Amazon, and all local.
Good evening, y'all. We are back with a very talented author, Kimberly Packard. Thank you, Kimberly, for joining us.
Thank you, Shanalee. This is fun.
Yeah, it is. I've really enjoyed speaking to you tonight. So, releasing your book, are there appearances coming up? What's the new phase of life look like for Kimberly?
Well, once I settle the butterflies, I'm going to have a series of book signings in the spring. The first one is the Home Run Author event here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, in Arlington at the ballpark.
That's where you're at, correct?
Yeah, I am. I live just outside of Fort Worth. And that is on March 23rd. And then I'll be in Killeen for the Bluebonnet Book Festival at the end of April. And I'm hoping to have one down around the Hill Country this summer as well. And of course, the McKinney Book Festival, I'll be there in June.
Wow, exciting.
Yeah.
So have you done the press release?
Yeah, I've been putting things out there, social media, kind of getting stuff out to let people know and getting all that stuff ready.
Where are your books available, dear? Where can they purchase it? Obviously, at the book fair, where they'll be able to
Absolutely.
purchase it, signed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So for the Phoenix series, they are wide. So Amazon, Barnes and Noble. I think they're also on the Indie Lecter bookstore. I'm going to try and experiment with Vortex and try KU, and just see how that goes. So for that one, obviously the paperbacks will be in other places, but the ebook will be on KU.
Oh, wonderful. So, of course, this is a weird question to ask as you just released it. Are you writing another one?
I am. So I kind of joke that Phoenix is my accidental series. I kind of wasn't going in there thinking it would be more than one book, and then it was a trilogy. But I have a lot of just various ideas, kind of running the gamut. So Vortex coming out. The next one, I'm really enjoying this book. It is very completely different than anything I've ever written before. But it is a book about dying, basically, in a short word. But I kind of joke that my log line is, it's the Breakfast Club, but with adults who are all dying and they're all doing their bucket list adventures. Wow. And so it's called Dyer's Club. And
so Kimberly, where can they go? Where can they find you on, like, the website, Facebook, etc.?
Yeah, I'm on all socials except Snapchat. I just don't get that one. I'm not the demographic for that. I'm a little too old.
So KimberlyPackard.com, right?
KimberlyPackard.com. That's my website. I'm also on Facebook. I think if you just look up Kimberly Packard author.
Wonderful.
And then Twitter at Kimberly Packard and Instagram at Kimberly Packard. And I guess I just got lucky in that either I'm the first Kimberly Packard to claim all that, or the others just don't care. So don't have to add author, writer, or any of that. It's just those.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. So next excursion will be a book about death and dying. I'm in. That's my deal. That you don't have to ask twice on that one. So
I kind of joke that the book after that needs to be a rom-com because there's light moments in it, and it's really, yes, everybody's dying, but aren't we all? And really, it's a book about living. But I need to write something light and romantic and funny after that, I think. So.
Well, Kimberly, it's been a complete joy. Y'all check her out. She's awarded. She's got an award. This whole Vortex thing, super interesting. Just finding yourself. We all could relate to that. And but KimberlyPackard.com. January 31st, excuse me. Go get Vortex. Go see her at these book series. Peace out, y'all. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Shanalee.
Sure.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website at indiebeacon.com.